Okay. So what I want to do, Roddy must start a song from it.
Can we see? Let's start a song. Somebody must start a song. Oh, my phone.
Let's take it down.
See what happens? Latecomers. Yo, let's come in. Where are you from? EWN.
1 2 1 2 1 2. Is this audible?
But we don't need that thing. We're fine.
We have a rally voice.
Yeah, I will deal with it.
Leave it to me, thanks.
1 2.
Yeah, ring. Do the SG.
Yeah, let's try it.
SG.
We're fine. Thank you, thank you.
How do I see if it's on? Yeah, I can see it right now.
The most important page is 164 to 168. Page 164 to 168.
We are not here for 5 hours.
Yeah, we're going to read that.
What is it called? What is it called in Parliament? This thing of reading too much. Where are you? Filibustering.
Strategy on that.
Check 165 and 168. 165 and page number.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, mics.
I hope it's not the president.
Filibustering. So I was going to read the page by page the first statement.
In a long time, so they might have another. Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Start, Commissar. We'll do those things later.
Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Mwiseni Nzozi. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you and thank you for responding promptly to our call for this press conference. I'm the national spokesperson of the EFF. To my far right in the Presidium is the Secretary General of the EFF, Godrej Gadi, and then right next to me here is the Deputy President of the EFF, Commissar Floyd Niko Shibabu, and then in the middle is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters. We, as all of you are aware, going to speak to the Marikana Commission report, but during the question and answer session, you can of course include all other matters that are of interest to yourselves. So we'll speak to everything else that you have interest in, but we are going to initially speak only to the Marikana report. So without any further ado, I hope that everybody is ready. I'm going to hand over to the Commander-in-Chief to take us through the statement, and we will be circulating it in a bit so that you are able to run with him. Thank you very much. CIC.
Knows the release of the report of the Commission of Inquiry on the massacre of Marikana by the ANC government in Marikana on the 16th of August 2012. It should be stated from the beginning that as this generation of economic freedom fighters who are never using the massacre of Marikana mine workers as a matter of political football in the same way the ruling party and right-wing political parties are doing. Long before Marikana massacre happened, and even before the economic freedom fighters assumed an independent and revolutionary organizational form, the core of the EFF leadership was at the forefront of struggles of the mine workers in the whole country, including in the Platinum Belt. That is why, prior to massacre of workers by the ANC, workers in Marikana called upon us to come and assist them in the same way we had assisted workers in Impala Platinum Mines, Aurora, Goldfields in the West Rand, Platinum mine workers in Sikukunu, asbestos ex-mine workers in Kuruman, and in the Eastern Cape and many other areas where we provided leadership. Of all political parties that have spoken thus far, the EFF is the only one that can legitimately speak on behalf of the mine workers. We therefore wish to make summary observation of the report of Judge Falam and speak to the way forward on what is to be done. Although the Commission obscured the question of premeditated mass murder, the events recounted in the Marikana Commission report on activities of the 14, 15, and 16 August of 2012 reveal vividly that the massacre of mine workers in Marikana was premeditated mass murder of workers on both Scene 1 and Scene 2. Worse is the case of Scene 2. The actions of the police represented barbaric criminality reminiscent of apartheid butchers who killed defenseless people even when they were surrendering and were not posing any danger. In the words of the Nkosi Kona Majuba, a mine worker in Marikana who was seen too, the police officers started shooting the mine workers with long and short firearms. Some mine workers put their hands in the air to show they were fighting, attacking the police officers, but they were shot. The commission report confirms that Police General Mbombo spoke about blood spilling referred to the 16th August 2012, the D-Day, and even organized mortuary vehicles prior to premeditated mass murder of mine workers. The very fact that tactical response team of the SAPS was deployed to Marikana with live ammunition rounds is evidence enough that the intention and plan was to shoot to kill. Judging by the speech of Police Commissioner Pierre and Minister of Police after the premeditated killing of workers, addendum below, they certainly were aware of and approved of this mass killing of workers. What this means is that the ANC government, with the influence of business politicians, in particular Cyril Ramaphosa, premeditated the killing of mine workers in Marikana on the 16th of August 2012. They engaged in what in law is known as conspiracy to commit murder. The rush to end the protest by mine workers was largely informed by political considerations, particularly the political fear that the Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters was going to lead a process which will amicably resolve and diffuse the stalemate between mine workers and the management of Lone Mill in a similar way he had done in Impala Platinum mine strikes of rogue drill operatives, where the intervention of the CIC led to the reinstatement of 29,000 dismissed workers in February and March 2012. This fact is confirmed by second part of Chapter 9C6 of the Marikana Commission report, which says, Lieutenant General Mbombo referred to the fact that Mr. Ramaphosa had presided over the hearing of the appeal brought by Mr. Julius Malema against the decision of the African National Congress to expel him from the party, and that Mr. Ramaphosa was, she put it, very strong in terms of the decision made. She went on to mention that Mr. Malema had intervened in the dispute of Impala and that the police had been able to manage the situation there after his visit. She stated in a discussion with the National Commissioner they had been concerned about the fact that if once again it came across that Mr. Malema diffused the situation, it will seem as if he has taken charge of the mines. She added that because of Mr. Malema's known position that the mines should be nationalized, it had a serious political connotation, and that had to be taken into account which they needed to find a way of diffusing. She said that she had told her people that they needed to act in such a way that they killed this thing. Mr. Mokoena agreed with this statement and said immediately, yes. Mr. Ramaphosa, workers' murderers, played a central role in influencing the police to take concomitant action against workers he had described as criminals in the email he sent to the Lonmin management. This further confirmed by the first part of Chapter 9C6 Commission report, which says, Lieutenant General Mbombo also mentioned that when she spoke to the Minister of Police, Mr. Muthetwa, he had said that Mr. Ramaphosa was calling him and pressurizing him. In this regard, she said that the National Commissioner had asked her the previous evening who the shareholders were, and that she had replied that she did not know, but that the minister had mentioned Mr. Ramaphosa, whereupon the National Commissioner had said that she got it. Chapter 9C8, the Commission agrees with the following submission made by the evidence leaders in this regard. She was unable to provide a coherent and compelling explanation for the sentiments she expressed and testified under cross-examination that the call from Ramaphosa to the minister did not influence her decision-making in respect of Marikana. She testified that any citizen is entitled to phone the police for assistance. We submit that this explanation is unconvincing, to say the least. From JJ192Bs, it is evident that General Mbombo was at pains to convey to Mr. Mokoena that the person who telephoned the minister was politically influential. Under cross-examination, she was unable to explain why she did say this, if it was irrelevant. Furthermore, the Commission accepts the following facts about General Mbombo as presented by evidence leaders. We submit that Exhibit JJ192Bs clearly shows that Lieutenant General Mbombo took into account irrelevant political consideration in approaching the situation at Marikana. She did not want mining companies to be seen to be supporting AMCU. She did not want mining companies to undermine NUM. She was responding to what she perceived as pressure from Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, whom she considered to be politically influential. She wanted to end the violence before Mr. Malema arrived in Marikana and was given credit for diffusing situation. The Commission further says that it is in full agreement with the submission of evidence leaders, Chapter 9C10, that on the evidence, the Commission should make finding that General Pierre was complicit in engaging in discussion where political factors were inappropriately considered and discussed in relation to policing the situation at Marikana. This is inconsistent with our constitutional and statutory regime, which requires policing be conducted in an impartial and unbiased manner. It should be noted that part of the political consideration which the police considered were the current calls by politicians who held private interest in Lonmin, Mr. Cyril, workers' murderer Ramaphosa, and the Minister of Police, Nathi Mthethwa. It is therefore unthinkable that after all these findings and revelations, the Commission went to exonerate Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa from the fact that he influenced police to take murderous action against workers in Marikana because he had already labeled them as criminals. As stated in the summarized version of Zuma's statement, the Commission has found that Lonmin did not use its best endeavors to resolve the disputes that arose between itself and its workers who participated in the unprotected strike on the one hand, and between the strikers and those workers who did not participate in the strike. It also did not respond appropriately to the threat of and the outbreak of violence. Lonmin also failed to employ sufficient safeguards and measures to ensure the safety of its employees. Lonmin also insisted that its employees who were not striking should come to work, despite the fact that it knew that it was not in a position to protect them from attacks by strikers. Furthermore, Lone Mill is involved in prima facie practices of aggressive tax avoidance. The Commission revealed the fact that during the period of workers' strike for the 12,500, Lone Mill had dubiously and criminally shifted 1.2 billion to a shelf company in Bermuda, whilst the cost of housing 5,500 of its employees would have cost 665 million. Lone Mill is also found to have not implemented its social labor plan as is required by the law. This happened when the chairperson of Lone Mill Transformation Committee was its non-executive director, Cyril Ramaphosa. The EFF rejects the finding that workers carrying traditional weapons is a criminal offense, which had to be responded to in a manner the police did. Everywhere in South Africa, and many South Africans who practice traditions carry traditional weapons, and there is nothing wrong with that. There is further explanation by the fact that it was only after Marikana massacre where the Minister of Police tried to outlaw the carrying of traditional weapons by striking workers. The EFF further rejects a recommendation that workers should be charged for activities of the 16th of August 2012. All credible evidence and video footage points to the open reality that workers posed no danger to the police. The police killed the workers because they went to the copy with an intention to kill workers. Whilst the Commission of Inquiry had the power and mandate to recommend further actions and prosecutions in certain cases, the EFF believes that the actions of Cyril Ramaphosa and Natim Tetwa had a causal effect on the ultimate decision to plan the mass killing of workers in Marikana. Conspiracy to commit murder is a criminal offense in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, and it should be taken upon by criminal procedure processes. In this regard, the EFF will do the following. 1. Lay criminal charges against Mr. Ramaphosa on the prima facie case of him conspiring to commit murder of workers. Lay criminal charges against Mr. Natim Tetwa for conspiring to commit murder of workers in Marikana and celebrating the massacre on behalf of government after the killing. Lay criminal charges against all the directors of Lone Mill for conspiring to kill workers, not protecting them, claiming that they could not afford salaries demanded, whilst they were in fact engaged in criminal forms of tax avoidance. Lay criminal charges against Mbombo for instructing the TRT to kill workers. Lay criminal charges against Piecha for conspiring to kill workers and instructing the TRT to kill workers. Institute a process of reparations against Lone Mill to demand reparations and payments of all the families of deceased of 10 million per family and 5 million per injured worker. Report Lone Mill to the South African Revenue Services for all cases of aggressive tax avoidance that stole potential money for workers and for the state as it is required by law. The EFF will visit the Marikana police station on Friday, tomorrow, the 3rd of July 2015, to open the police cases. The EFF will also use the opportunity to ask about the police case number 167/08/2012 and 168/08/2012, which were opened against the police who killed mine workers in Marikana in 2012 by the workers. The EFF will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that all who conspire to kill mine workers are brought to book, and will even consider options of private prosecution if the NDPP political appointments refuse to pursue the cases we are going to open. Politically, the EFF will use all its available platforms to expose the murderous regime of the ANC, will mobilize, educate, and agitate the whole of South African society and the world to see the hypocrisy of the ANC government. We will fight with everything in our power to expose the callous, oppressive, repressive, murderous nature of the sitting government. We do all this because we want to protect the constitutional right of mine workers to protest. We also do all this because we want to nip in the bud the entitlement of politicians to kill their own citizens and justify such through whitewash commission reports. The callers' premeditated murder and massacres of workers should never be let to go through without anyone being held responsible. The EFF will fight in all platforms to hold the murderers and conspirators of murder accountable in totality. We'll never stop until justice is realized. I thank you.
Thank you very much, President. So let's attempt the first round of questions. We'll probably go 3 times. And I wish to remind you that you don't have to stick necessarily to the Marikana Commission report. So let's take the first round of hands for questions. Let's take the first round of questions.
The commission.
Then distribute.
1, 2, 3. So it's 1, 2, 3 in that order. Please remember your name and also indicate who you are.
My name is Jan de Lange. I work for Beeld and Rapport newspapers. Can I ask you whether you feel that the report has tainted the independence of the judiciary in South Africa? And secondly, of the Marikana report, what is your wish? What is your opinion on the forthcoming Special National Congress of COSATU? What do you think is going to be the come out, the takeaways there? Thank you.
All right. Olim Gambi from eNCA. Just 2 brief questions. The first one is, do you think that the targeting of Cyril Ramaphosa, as you clearly have mentioned him several times in this statement, that his targeting was a bad political strategy on your part and others, of course, that are representing workers in this? Because I think the feeling was that the commission would never have found him guilty in the first place. And the second to that question is, did your own personal political vendetta against him play a part in this? He's the man that expelled you from the ANC. So did that play any part in you pursuing him relentlessly? Thanks.
I'm Ranjini Mansami from Daily Maverick. Firstly, Judge Farlam recommended that there should be another inquiry by the National Director of Public Prosecutions to determine whether there are, in fact, criminal charges to be pursued. Are you not jumping the gun by laying your own charges? Are you not supposed to wait for that process? Do you not trust that process to unfold? Secondly, how are you going to deal with this matter in Parliament? Is this going to be a second pay back the money? Is there going to be another chance, more demonstrations? How are you going to now interact with people like Deputy President Ramaphosa and Minister Mthethwa in Parliament? Thank you.
Well, we think that Judge Farlam did what he was asked to do, and ordinarily commissions by their own nature operate within a limited space because of the terms of reference, and they do not have much power to go into a thorough, deeper investigation and unearth what actually is not presented before them. And we actually want to thank him for having availed himself and to have kick-started this process. For sure, he also knows that that was not the end, but the beginning of getting into the bottom of what really occurred. And we think that he gave an independent view. We do not agree with it. We think that his findings were limited, and we think that he could have done even much more. But that doesn't suggest that he's actually being manipulated by anyone. Judges make mistakes, and that's why there is in our law the a recourse to review the commission's report, which is a good thing. And in the judicial process, there's what we call appeals. If you're not happy with the judgment of lower courts, and we've seen higher courts, reversing the decisions of the earlier, courts or lower courts, as it were. So our judiciary is intact. Our judiciary is refusing a temptation to enter into a political space, and appreciates the fact that there are three legs of the state, and therefore it must not assume the responsibilities of the other two legs of the state. There is, however, a huge attempt by the ruling party to manipulate the judiciary. There is a strong intention by the ruling party to infiltrate the judiciary and render it dysfunctional. In the same way they've rendered the legislature dysfunctional, in the same way they've rendered the executive dysfunctional. And we are happy that our judges are resisting that bad intention of the ruling party to hijack the judiciary and use it to settle political scores and to run a political program. We have very little to say about COSATU, because I think that their special Congress will be their memorial service. So it will serve as an official memorial service of COSATU, and the normal conference, which is to come in less than a year's time, will then serve as an official funeral. So I think that is their preparation towards a bearing of COSATU. There is no longer such a union as COSATU. It has been swallowed by the ruling party. Its leadership serves in the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and some of its former leaders, in the form of a former president of NUM and president of NEHAWU, are now in parliament. So that was, the beginning of this process of a natural death taking place. There is no targeting of Ramaphosa because we are not in the commission, and we are not even asked to give evidence in the commission. So you can arrive at that conclusion and say that the commission wouldn't find anything credible to use against anybody else because you channeled all your efforts on Ramaphosa and left other important evidence which you could have presented before the commission. We're not there. So even if we had targeted Ramaphosa, we didn't in any way undermine our case because we never presented any case. There were different parties represented in the commission, and all of them represented their clients to the best of their abilities. And we think that even those who represented workers did, very well. The reason why we open a case against Ramaphosa is because it is only through criminal investigation that a proper and thorough investigation, which is thorough and to detail, can be conducted. For instance, if Ramaphosa is charged through a Criminal Procedure Act, they can equally use Section 205 to get more information through his cell phone conversations around that period. Because we're only speaking about people who confessed on their own about the description and the request Ramaphosa made. But the reality of the situation is that if we're to ask for Ramaphosa's information is 205, right? The one they use to get EFF information. So if we get 205, the investigating officers can get Ramaphosa's telephone records. The investigating officers can get Ramaphosa's emails of during that period. We are going to unearth worse than what we had in the commission. Remember, what has been had in the commission was found coincidentally. It was not availed voluntarily. Dali and them had to say there are emails here, and all of you then jumped and said, emails, discovery of emails. Imagine if Ramaphosa's emails of that period were to be investigated, his telephone conversations were to be asked through a judge from a service provider, and his SMSs were to be asked from his service provider, will get worse. So this prima facie tells you there is a worst story to be told from Ramaphosa's side. Only police, not a commission of inquiry, only police can unearth that information. So I think, and we are more than convinced, that there is the most dangerous information hidden in Ramaphosa's electronics. Phones, iPads if he's got one, computer, laptops, all that information if it was to be collected. I can tell you, just look at what we get, emails we get through not so thorough investigation, where Ramaphosa says this is a criminal activity. You could have said worse things. If we were to do the same with the cell phones of the Minister of Police, if we were to do the same thing with Mbombo and Piecha. Remember, we are relying on the tapes which were made available, the recordings which were made available. If police, independence policing, was to go deep into what has not come forth in the commission, there will be worse. Worse. In the recordings, people are talking politics. Police are talking politics. We must undermine nationalization. We must undermine Malema's takeover. Remember the disciplinary committee. Police are in a deep political conversation in taking a decision. They make political considerations. And with this prima facie, somebody wants to tell me there isn't basis to engage in a thorough criminal investigation. This gives the basis from which a thorough investigation must be made. And that's why we are opening a criminal case. There's no personal vendetta with Cyril. We're not expelled by Cyril. We're expelled by Afrikaner called Derek Hanekom. We're not expelled by Cyril. Cyril only endorsed what Derek said. So we have no vendetta against Cyril. Our problem with Cyril is that he is involved in criminal activities. One of those is the killing of our people. The second of those is the massive and aggressive profit shifting through loan mill. And loan mill does that because it knows that it has got a political protection. Everybody has to see this through. They engage in the manner in which they are doing because they enjoy political protection, a political protection that is prepared to kill in defense of capital. That's why they do as they wish. They are law unto themselves. It's not only killing, they steal the money. The EFF said that before. The commission comes to confirm that indeed these people stole the money. Indeed, these people, with the money they stole, they could have built 5,500 workers a proper accommodation and still make profit. That is 1-point-something billion. With half of that, they can just build the 5,500 workers proper accommodation and still make profit. We said that before. And we are happy that the commission vindicates the EFF position on why these mines should be nationalized, because they do not use the resources to develop the workers, the mining communities, and to also support the South African coffers. The fiscus is still struggling to meet targets till to date, yet the money leaves the country in a manner that it is traceable, in a manner that it can be confirmed, but nothing happens. Why? Because they've got political protection. I said then, you know, it's better to quote yourself, but I think Toli was there and many of you were there. You must go and check the record. I said it there that I don't trust Zuma's processes. That's why I'm not shocked with the outcomes of this commission, because I knew that this is just buying of time. It's just going to be a whitewash, and then that's it. And then they think the matter will be forgotten. We're not going to forget this matter. Neither do we trust the NDPP. We don't trust him. The guy belongs to, remember the NDPP, the National Director of Prosecution, the NPA, is divided into two. There was a group of Jiba, which is Zuma group in the NPA, and there was a group of Bredenberg, which was a racist DA group. So that's how the NPA was divided, because both parties wants to manipulate the prosecuting authority. So Bredenberg had her group, and Zuma had his group through Jiba. And this one was in Jiba's group. So the Bredenberg group, at least it doesn't carry much of a dangerous political agenda. It just carries a racist agenda of wanting to protect white privileges. That's what it does. So anything white, anything capital, anything big business should be protected against this corrupt government. That is their view. And then there is this one, which has got no agenda at all except to save Jacob Zuma. We must never prosecute Jacob Zuma in everything else we do. The rest you can prosecute. Jacob Zuma and everybody else who support Jacob Zuma must never be prosecuted. But otherwise, the rest you can go on. You can even leave this thing of transforming the prosecuting authority. We don't care, as long as our man is safe. So it's very myopic and short-sighted type of affection led by Jiba, which is dangerous, and that's where this new NDPP comes from. So the most dangerous man who's there to protect an individual against state institution, because they all believe in the theory of personal rule, the respect of individual modern state institutions. So we do not trust that there's going to be a prosecution of Jacob Zuma. Of Cyril Ramaphosa. We want to open a case against Cyril, against Nati, against Ria Piecha, against Mbombo, because we want history to account. We don't want our children to ask us questions as to, where were you when people were murdered? What actions have you taken because you called yourself a revolutionary? We're not going to sit back even when we see that these are just useless processes which are not going to be followed up. We're going to open those cases. We're going to follow them up to a point where we will want the NDPP to issue a certificate of non-prosecution. And then we'll take them on through a private prosecution. He must decide that he's not going to prosecute them. And he must issue the certificate, then the private prosecution will kick in. We have written a letter to Parliament to ask for a debate on this matter. And we hope that the Speaker will respond positive, because we want to expose both the weaknesses of the report and the ANC's weaknesses and approach to this matter. And Parliament is a very correct platform where South Africans can observe an open engagement by all elected representatives who then engage each other on why some of the things we are proposing are of significance and important that they must be pursued. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Let's attempt another round. 1, 2. Are there any hands? 3. Going once, twice, gone.
I'm Gemma Middleton from Rhodes University's Opidan Press, and I just have 2 questions. Firstly, what is your plan to help students pay for university or education after the failure of the NSFAS? And what, are you planning to implement any sort of EFF influence or branch into Rhodes? And how do you plan to market specifically to the Eastern Cape and the universities there?
To Helena Silo from Power FM. If you could just give your opinion on the ICC, the miners want to take the case to the ICC, given your position that you don't believe we should be a member. And then if you're the shooters on the ground, do you believe that they should bear any responsibility? They might face criminal prosecution. And will you be joining VAVI's, the shooters on the ground? The police, yeah, the actual TRT. And then, will you be joining VAVI's March on Corruption next month? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Atandiwa from City Press. Earlier on in your statement, you mentioned that the EFF leadership was at the forefront of struggles of mine workers in the whole country, including the Platinum Belt. And in most of your statement, you're talking about 16th of August. But there are 10 people who died prior to the 16th of August, and these 10 include miners who were allegedly butchered by other miners leading up to the 16th. Is the EFF going to take any consideration of what happened prior to that? I'm not talking about police officers. I'm just talking about other miners who were killed for going to work. Because the report itself doesn't pay too much attention to that. So is the EFF going to be taking up any look into that as well?
Well, we advocate for free education up until you obtain your first degree. And that's what we are fighting for. We believe that with state control of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy, we can afford to finance the education system in South Africa, which is of quality and free. And the Falam Commission shows you that more than $1 billion left South Africa illegally just from one mining company. Imagine if we were to close those floodgates and were to control all mining sectors in South Africa. We can raise sufficient capital to finance free education, free primary health care, quality housing, and provision of basic services to our people. And it's our deliberate to fight for NSFAS to continue to finance the poor of the poorest for as long as this policy has not been attained. So NSFAS is the only viable alternative, as it were now, to try and rescue the poor masses of our people. And in the institutions where the EFF is in charge, we have always ensured that students are not financially excluded because they are owing certain fees or they've got no sufficient resources to register in those institutions. So we are permanently engaged in that. We are launching a branch in Rhodes. If it's not launched as yet, because I went to Rhodes when we were in the Eastern Cape, and I actually had to address 2 halls which were full to capacity, and students had to block me, those who were locked outside, insisting that I must still address them, outside. So I didn't have the necessary, facilities to address them. Even the voice was beginning to fail me. So that is a type of support we have at Rhodes, and I think there should be a process by now to launch a branch at Rhodes. We also suggested then that the name should change for a better name, not this white supremacist. And when I left, 2 weeks thereafter, actually there was a seminar or some meeting organized by the university for such a discussion to take place. Well, the EFF position on the ICC is that we need the ICC, because Ranjeni said after Floyd spoke, she didn't hear what is the position of the EFF. The ICC must be reflective of the composition of the world. So, and that should be reflected in its cases, the people it prosecutes, and member states. It can't be that it is international when the big brothers of international politics are not signatory to the ICC. And we cannot even be told by ICC non-signatory states that South Africa should have complied with ICC warrant of arrest when they themselves are not members. I'm told the argument of the USA is that the judicial system is different from that of the ICC, and therefore that's why, amongst others, they are not members of the ICC. Then they should put an argument that the ICC should have those elements which are not reflective of the USA, so that the USA becomes a signatory. So we want a complete overhaul of the ICC. It must not be voluntarily, it must be compulsory for all states to be members. Then we know that all these criminals from the USA, from Israel, from Britain, and everywhere else in the world will be subjected to prosecution in the ICC. But up until then, no one of our people should be subjected to that kangaroo court which is meant for African people only, and controlled and manipulated by the imperialist forces. No one. But we welcome the idea of such a body, because if we do not have such a body, we are going to have tyrants, dictators, murderers, butchering people like Cyril Ramaphosa did in Marikana, and they cannot be subjected to any process, particularly internationally, which will be independent and which will not be biased to certain politicians. It's an ideal situation that Ramaphosa should be tried in the ICC, because we suspect the workers will not get a proper justice in South Africa due to a dysfunctional prosecuting authority. It will just present a weak case if it's forced and put under a severe pressure to prosecute. It will just put a weak case and go and lose it deliberately. So there must be a recourse beyond this type of an arrangement we have inside. It's an ideal situation, but a justice that is racially biased, a justice that has got targeted victims is no justice at all. Ramaphosa ugly as he deserves justice as well. He deserves justice as well. So we cannot just say to him, he must be going hanged and he doesn't deserve. No. We think that he must be subjected to a proper judicial process. And who will meet the workers? You're asking the question and now you want to leave and we're answering you. Now, you should have known that before you asked the question that you're going to live crossing. So that we don't remain speaking alone. You are unfair on us.
I'm sorry, I'm recording.
So now, Ramaphosa must be subjected to a fair process, but the ICC is not such a platform. The workers in their consultation with the lawyers made that request. But it is the responsibility of us, political leadership, to go and educate the workers that we are all angry, but we cannot be angry to an extent that we can see de Klerk as a solution, for instance. So in the same way, we can't see the ICC as a solution. It's not a solution as it is now. But with a proper transformation, we believe that such structures are of importance, especially for the continent such as Africa, which has got potential or which has been subjected to a lot of dictators, taking over and killing people as they wish. But we don't think the ICC is a solution now. Actually, we want the AU to strengthen its judicial processes. They must be well financed. They must provide African solution to African problems and not imperialist, a solution. We believe police who shot people on the ground, they must be arrested. That's why we opened a case. We just gave you case numbers now. Those cases were opened by workers. Nothing has happened between then and now. The excuse was that there is a commission taking place. Now the commission is done. We want to know who are the investigating officers, how far are they with their investigation. Well, Vavi's march has not been presented officially to the leadership of the EFF, and we appreciate such initiatives from patriotic South Africans who can sit back and allow corruption to destroy South Africa. And such initiatives are welcomed at all times. But we hope the leadership of the EFF will make reflections on this matter and take a formal decision as to whether they will support the march. For sure, you will agree that we're coming to present our perspective with regard to a commission which gave its view on the massacre of the 16th of August. And that's why our 90% of our speech speaks to that. We're not coming to give a press release on crime in South Africa, but particularly on 16th of August. So we want police to investigate those cases of mine workers who were killed before the 16th of August and the police who were killed before the 16th of August as criminal activities. Those we agree fully that they should be classified as criminal activities and they should be investigated as such. But the 16th of August is a massacre committed by the state in protection of a capital. And that's where we're concentrating today. And we hope that the media, working with all of us, will also try to make a follow-up on those specific cases of what really happened to those who died before the 16th of August. That's where we are. Thank you.
Okay, last round.
Very final round, so I'm going to give you time to reflect before I take hands. I'm taking the final round. We're going to begin with Kaya, ANN7, and then the gentleman at the back, Ranjeni, and we'll end with the eNCA so that it has a final word on this matter. We're honoring, we're respecting them. Is here. Okay, Kaya.
Hi, good day, Mr. CIC and your team. It's Kaya here from Kaya FM News. I hope I'm not just going off the rails, because my question is just about Lesotho. From the EFF's perspective, how do you resolve Lesotho's issues? I mean, we've seen SADC trying to intervene, but it appears that, nothing sticks. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelden. I'm from ANN7. My question is on the e-toll. The new e-toll tariff came into effect from midnight. As EFF, will there be a further challenge from the EFF side on this? On the e-toll, the new tariff? No, will you all further challenge this? Because the new tariff has come into effect from midnight.
Yeah, that one.
You just want to hear. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking my question. It's Bonolo from the New Age. The Democratic Alliance said that when Parliament convenes in August, they plan to table a special compensation fund for the families of the miners that were killed at Marikana. In this regard, does the EFF support such a move? Thank you.
Okay.
Mia Lindiki from Eyewitness News. I don't know if this question has been asked because I had to go out quickly. I just want to know, how certain are you that the police will actually, and the National Prosecuting Authority will actually take on this case? Because you mentioned that this is a political agenda, will they then take it on? And if they decide not to investigate it, say, for whatever reason, what other route will you go? I think you mentioned something about going a private way, but just if you can just elaborate, what will you then do? Thanks.
Okay.
Good day, it's Amos from SABC Radio News. I just wanted to check with regard to the process of reparations. How soon are you planning to start on that? And how did you come up to these figures of 10 million and 5 million? Do you think they are perhaps affordable?
Okay. Ranjini.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask again. I just want to ask, with this private prosecution, I don't know of many private prosecutions that are actually successful. So is it not going to turn out to be another wild goose chase? Because what you're asking is branch level, people at police stations, basically to investigate their superiors. And the chance of that being successful, I think, is very little. So will this not prolong the grief and the agony of the Marikana victims by sending them through another channel now that is unlikely to be successful? And secondly, you say you're instituting a process of reparations against Lonman. The people who fired the live ammunition against the workers was the police. Are you not going to make any claim against the state or encourage the victims to make a claim against the state for compensation? Thanks.
Thanks, Polly again from eNCA. Mine is similar to Eyewitness News. However, it's directly linked to the NDPP. You're saying you don't trust him. So what hope is there that you will see a successful prosecution that you wish for here? And just lastly then, you're saying that the IEC at the moment, it would be ideal for Cyril to go and be tried there. However, it's not transformed. We get that. But importantly, you also say that tyrants need not be allowed to run with impunity. What's your view of Robert Mugabe? Do you see him as a tyrant? I know you were close to him at some point.
I think that concludes the question session, President.
The Lesotho problem is primarily business. contestation of limited resources and accumulation of such resources done through occupation of political office. And therefore, by virtue of lack of opportunities in Lesotho, everybody else wants to capture state power and use that for survival. So with such limited resources, then comes Cyril Ramaphosa, who then goes in to look for more greener pastures in a limited situation. So Cyril is like that. Cyril, wherever he enters, he starts sniffing for money. He starts looking for money. How can we make money here? That is his style. And I'm not bad-mouthing him. He told us that. He can go to court and sue me. I will tell the cause. He told us that in the youth league. When he came to the youth league, we invited him to the youth league to come and tell us about sunset clauses and how they arrived at sunset clauses. And he even cried there when he was explaining those things. And after crying, we told him, or no, that cry is not going to change as you sold out. You can cry anyhow you want, but you sold out. And we told him that when we're in the ANC, Cyril told us that when they were busy with negotiations, Vodacom was negotiating an entry in South Africa. And it was during the negotiations. Then they told Vodacom that you cannot enter into negotiations with these people because we are removing them. You have to talk to us. Otherwise, when we take over power, we are going to cancel that deal. And then that's how they started sending people to accumulate stakes in Vodacom. During negotiations, they were all, when we were negotiating for freedom, they were already looking at where are we going to eat here. Ask him that question. That Julius says, you told them when you were busy negotiating, already you were looking at opportunities which were existing, amongst others was Vodacom, because there was no this thing of cell phone, that it was just arriving. And then they went into it and they demanded it. And some of them got shares even then. I know their names. So some of them are very good to the EFF. So they are very good comrades. So I don't want to make them collateral damage. But Cyril was amongst the people who saw opportunity during negotiations of business transaction. You send such a person to Lesotho and you hope he will bring peace. He will not bring peace, he will bring a business deal. That's what he's good at. Negotiated freedom of South Africa with others, agreed to let go of economic power and the land in exchange of BEE, where the state will not be involved, individuals will be involved, and those individuals, it will be themselves. And then the rest of us will enjoy one man, one vote. We're in this mess of an economy that is still reflective of colonial patterns of ownership because of Cyril and others who were in the negotiations. Cyril likes telling everybody that he was a leader of negotiations and the constitution. What has that done for us except to make him rich? He has to be happy because to him that constitution was a deal. White people will not take your land, will not nationalize your properties. In exchange, you will identify the black political elite and give it shares. That's where we are. So the SADC has just chosen a wrong mediator in Lesotho. Let's get a proper person who will have the interest of his country or her country first, then have the interest of SADC and the whole of African continent when that person approaches the issues in Lesotho, and will not be driven by personal interest to accumulate more, especially when there is instability in Lesotho, is benefiting them. We don't talk tariffs in the EFF of e-tolls. We don't want e-tolls. Whether it's 4 cents or 2 cents, we don't care. We don't want any payment done on our roads. These are public roads. They should not be privatized, and no one should pay for these roads. So we don't pay for e-tolls. Fortunately, the EFF has got a car called a Golf, a GTI Golf. Those things of e-tolls, what do you call them? The bill. They come here. They are here. Won't pay them. Well, and there's no one who can stop our car from moving on the streets here. It will move on these streets because these are our roads. So we don't pay e-tolls. We call upon our people not to pay e-tolls. And therefore, unjustifiable laws are not laws at all, and they are not worth complying with them. Our people should not comply with those laws. Whether new regime of tariffs introduced by Cyril, there is nothing honest about that. Anything touched by that Cyril is a big problem with Zuma. So they say new tariffs now. You are all going to queue and start paying new tariffs. In 6 months' time, they are going to tell you we're back to where we were before, because we've taken into consideration the currency, the inflation. They will give you some long explanation. Therefore, we have to increase. The increase means back to where they were. That time you are registered, there is no turning back. So no one should register for those things of e-tolls. Well, we've had the DA's input on the compensation. We'll listen to them. We agree the state must also pay, in answering the same question by Ranjeni, the state should pay, and the DA has canvassed those grounds and is even suggesting that there should be a bill presented before Parliament so that the state is now, through law, made to compensate the families and the injured workers. Two things here. Well, we have to report a case. In as much as we do not trust that junior police investigators will do a thorough job in investigating their seniors, we still believe that there are still police who love the Constitution more than their seniors. And if they were to do their work, there could be a successful prosecution. And then, including the NDPP, perhaps by whatever coincidence appoints an independent prosecutor who's not scared to proceed with the prosecution, we may be lucky like that. You know, it's very unfortunate that we now have to opt for lucky because state institutions are unreliable. That's the first option. The second option, Ranjan, is that political situations are not stuck. They are dynamic. And tomorrow, we may wake up with Zuma not being a president. So 5 minutes in politics is too much. So in politics, anything can happen. We may come and complain that, no, the seniors are controlling the system, therefore there's nothing you can do because of the corrupt leadership. Boom, tomorrow you wake up, nature has resolved our problem. That's one option. The second option might be that political processes are speeded up in such a way that certain political elements which have corrupted the prosecuting authority and the policing system are no longer in power. And that then gives police and prosecutors an opportunity to independently investigate and prosecute. We don't want a situation where you guys ask the question, But why are people, not even one is arrested for this murder? And then they say to you, but no one has ever laid a complaint. When you say, no, Cyril has done this, but he has never been charged, he's a politician above the law, they say to you, but what are you talking about? No one has ever laid a charge against Cyril. We have to do it so that there is no way out. But remember, 2019 is not very far. If the ANC doesn't remove Zuma before 2019, if there is no significant political change in between now and 2019 which allow proper prosecution to take place, the masses of our people will then have an opportunity to vote for a government which will take these people on. If people of South Africa say they want a murderous regime which protects politicians which kill innocent people and vote for it in 2019, so be it. But history will give an account that we took an initiative to bring these people to book. Conditions at the time did not favor us. And if you have never seen a successful private prosecution, you're going to see it with the EFF. In the same way, you have seen a new party by young people for the first time in parliament. A party that is very successful in holding the executive accountable. So there's nothing EFF touches which doesn't become successful. The EFF has got the best legal minds in South Africa. Since its formation, the EFF has never lost a case brought before a neutral judge. Even on this one, already a team of legal minds have been assembled because we're preparing for a day where the NDPP says, I'm not prosecuting, then we immediately move in and prosecute. So we are not resting. We are not going to leave the Marikana issue to die a natural death with no one held accountable. We are not going to do that. Well, the issue of the reparation, that's what we said. We have assembled the legal team to look at both the reparation process and the private prosecution, including giving us more options of what could be done emanating from this report and with prima facie evidence collected through this process of collecting the report. 10 million and 5 million we think is sufficient amount, which our people will actually appreciate. We know it will not bring life. We couldn't think of any other amount except this amount. We think that those workers would have used 12,500 to finance the education of their children, who are going to bring about the best brains to grow the economy and this country as well. And by killing them, we denied them an opportunity to nurture and produce those great minds through their children to take forward this beautiful country. And therefore, the mind should be held accountable. I think the Commission makes very serious findings on the part of the London mine, and therefore it has to be held accountable. So that's how we arrived at those figures. Robert Mugabe remains a revolutionary. How do you say a man who won elections is a tyrant? He has never presided over any mass murder of our people. He continues to lead a party that advocates for very radical economic policies in Zimbabwe, continues to be actually the only remaining leader in Africa which can stand up to the West and still tell them were to get off. He remains the only leader who can still tell African leaders what it means to be African. He's the one who called Zuma and told him, hey, you've guaranteed us here that you will not arrest al-Bashir. That Zuma would have arrested al-Bashir. I mean, he lacks character like that, you know. But it is out of interventions of President Mugabe that al-Bashir was not arrested. Zuma brings people here, he promised them all sorts of things, including things that he doesn't have capacity to deliver. And when they are here, he's highly disorganized. And then he ends up undermining our courts here because of lack of capacity. You know, but when he moves around African leaders in AU meetings, he likes playing big and creating an impression that he's in charge of South Africa. And then they arrive here, he embarrasses all of them like that. Now they have to come meet from time to time to check if their fellow president is safe, as you know, committed by Zuma, that he will not be arrested. He's the only one who continues to hold the whole of Africa together and still pushes for African agenda. No one after Gaddafi, no one pushes in the manner in which President Mugabe is doing. We may not agree with him on this or that issue, but from a broader perspective, he's the man that represents the kind of Africa we want. Africa where Africans own their land, Africa where Africans own their economy, Africa where Africa is treated as an equal partner in international economy and international politics. Africa where its resources will benefit the children of the continent. He's the only one that speaks that language without an apology. And that's why everywhere he goes, President Mugabe is celebrated by Africans. Because the rest of them, they are scared of imperialist forces. The rest of them, they are scared of the IMF and the World Bank. President Mugabe is the only leader that knows that for the real change to come, Africans will have to go through the necessary pain. Exactly what the Zimbabweans are going through now. We don't see what is happening in Zimbabwe as anarchy. We don't blame it on President Mugabe, we blame it on capital. That because they disagree with him politically, they use their economic muscle to punish the people of Zimbabwe. So, capital is to be blamed for Zimbabwean situation. Let them go in, let them go and invest and see if indeed that policy will not work. Not withhold back and withdraw breads from the shelves in an attempt to put pressure on the people of Zimbabwe so that they can remove President Mugabe. They use their economic muscle to effect a regime change in Zimbabwe. Let Zimbabweans choose who they want. They've chosen him. He is their president. For how many times? I don't care. I don't care if a president in Africa goes for third term or for the fourth term, but not in South Africa. They can do it everywhere else if they want to do it. It's their choice. Let people make their own choice. Your definition of democracy on the basis of what is acceptable in Western Africa is wrong. That democracy means a president must serve 2 terms. If it works for Namibia, let it be. If it works for Nigeria, let it be. If it's not working for Zimbabwe, let the Zimbabweans make that choice. No one should impose himself on Zimbabweans. It won't work here in South Africa. Here is 2 terms and go home. So, the third term will not work in South Africa. But if a third term works in Zimbabwe, if a third term, fourth term works in Zimbabwe, don't say it won't work in Zimbabwe when the people of Zimbabwe say, we're good with it. How and when did they say that? They said that when they amended the constitution through a referendum. They had referendums in Zimbabwe. They had referendums, they won that the president can go on. So only now, if they are limiting the term of office, it's their call. What you make of your own country, it's your decision. But in South Africa, third term will never work. In South Africa, we subscribe to a notion that says leaders must come and go. We are a country that prepares succession through the preparation of second and third layer leadership. We're not a country which has got leadership crisis. And we must thank Zimbabweans, by the way, for having kept President Mugabe there. Who would have driven this African agenda without him and in the absence of President Mbeki? This African agenda would have died a natural death. This Africa will continue to be a playground for Europe if we don't have leaders that says enough is enough. Let the resources of this continent benefit the people of this continent. So we're looking for that leadership. We're looking for that leadership not only in South Africa, in Nigeria as well, in DRC as well, everywhere in the African continent. We want a strong AU. We want a strong African parliament which takes legislation, which adopt legislation and make member states accountable for how far have they gone in implementing the legislation of the African Union adopted by African Parliament. We want African Union with a strong judicial arm which will hold the whole of Africa accountable for crimes committed by African leaders, amongst others. We want Africa where trade will happen freely amongst ourselves and guard against those who are going to bring rejects in our continent and create an impression that they are produced here in Africa. We want Africa that will one day have one currency and one day that will have one president and one government which will preside over this continent. Because in any way, we are one. These borders of Africa were imposed on us by colonizers. We're looking for a leader who's going to lead us to that dream where there will be one Africa. That's what we're looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President. Thank you very much, everybody. Please make sure that you have filled in the register. I've received lots of complaints from some of you that you don't get our emails. Have a great afternoon.
Tomorrow we're in Marikana tomorrow.
And we are, remember, you'll receive emails before the end of the day about the time. 12. But we are going to make charges in Marikana.
12. At 12 o'clock.
Yes, 12 o'clock. But we'll send you that information again. So 12 o'clock tomorrow, we are in Marikana to lay the charges as articulated in the statement.
Against the murderers.
Thank you very much.
If there can be a strong argument, even with the evidence which was gathered here,
it's sufficient.
It's sufficient for people to go down.
Yeah. No, prima facie.